Hey, 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 friends. Welcome to the Way of Valor. I am so glad you are here. And it is such an honor for me to introduce you to our guest today. We have on the show today Dr. Daniel Amen. You might be familiar with him. I know I've been watching him for a very long time and learning from him. He created the Daniel Plan with Rick Warren of Saddleback, a faith-based program to get people healthy. He's Washington Post calls you the most popular psychologist in America. You're 10 times on the New York best-selling list, and I think I lost count of how many books you've actually written. And then what I love is you have written books like Healing ADHD. And so for me in my field of education, books like that are such a gift to the education community on how we best support and help families that are dealing with this. So welcome to the Way of Valor, Dr. Amen.
Thank you, Angie. It's a pleasure to be with you.
So we're really excited, and I know you've seen this, and I'm going to get ask you more about your background, but I know in education we have seen just an increase in things like suicide. I think the statistics are every 14 minutes, someone commits suicide. Every 8 minutes, someone dies of a drug overdose in our country. Half of the women in our country are on, or no, is it a half? I think it's a quarter of the women in our country are on antidepressants. And so I'm so excited to meet with you because you have a really different approach than anyone I've heard in the psychiatric world. So can you share with us kind of what your approach is and how you discovered that?
So I'm actually a psychiatrist by training, and psychiatrists are the only medical doctors who never look at the organ they treat. And when I was in my psychiatric training, I knew it was wrong. I knew it would change. I just had no idea I'd be sort of part of the change. At Amen Clinics over the last 32 years, we have built the world's largest database of brain scans related to behavior. It's about 225,000 scans on people from 155 countries. And the big lesson we learned is that most psychiatric problems are not mental health issues at all. Rather, they are brain health issues that steal people's minds. The brain, the physical functioning of your brain, creates your mind. And if your brain's not healthy, your mind is not healthy.
Yeah.
And what we learned is get your brain right and your mind will follow. And the brain can have problems, just like your heart can have problems. Yet most people who see a cardiologist have never had a heart attack. They are there to prevent them. I see a day, and the leader in this movement has to be schools, because it's never going to be families. And churches can clearly be involved. I mean, we saw thousands of churches do the Daniel Plan. And it's basically a brain health program that includes God and your neighbors. I mean, I thought it was brilliant. And, but we need to stop using the term mental illness. I hate it. It shames people, stigmatizing, and it's wrong. They're brain health issues. And once you start seeing this as a brain health issue, it's like, well, what helps the brain and what hurts the brain? 27% of all doctor visits, someone's being prescribed a benzodiazepine, which are addictive and increase your risk for Alzheimer's disease and are clearly bad for the brain.
Wow.
So we will go, is this good for your brain or bad for it? Which means we also have to attack the food in this country, which is a scandal. I often say the real weapons of mass destruction are highly processed, pesticide sprayed, high glycemic, low fiber food like substances stored in plastic containers. It's school food or it's hospital food. Um, we need to do way better to support the physical health of the brain. And then what we're going to see, and we actually have a high school program you and I talked about
Yes.
before, Brain Thrive by 25, decreases drug, alcohol, and tobacco use, decreases depression, and improves self-esteem because you teach kids to love and care for their brain. And it's like, is this good for your brain or bad for your brain? And so if you care, you start making better decisions.
I absolutely love that. And I love that it needs to start. In fact, you have like a preschool program and early childhood program as well, which I think is so key to fostering that. What would you tell parents right now that maybe their child is young and they seem to be healthy, vibrant? How would you tell them what are the most important things that they should be doing to foster brain health for their kids?
Every day you are modeling brain health or you're modeling brain destruction by what they see you do. So the first thing is live the message. Plus, this is also really good for your children because when you're 80, they're not going to be worried about you. They're not
Good.
going to be stressed out because you can't find your way home. I mean, just imagine the 40 and 50-year-olds now who have, if you're blessed to live to 85, Angie, you have a 50% chance of being diagnosed with dementia. You have a 1 in 2 chance of being diagnosed with dementia. That should just scare you into
Hmm.
brain health. I always say some anxiety is critical, right? And if I know I have that level of risk in, for me, less than 20 years, it's like, oh no, I have to be serious. But the more you model it, the more likely they're going to pick up what you do. Children do what you do,
True.
not what you tell them to do. And if you want to raise brain healthy kids, it's critical you have a relationship with them. And that means 20 minutes a day, just spend time with them, doing something that they want to do that's not brain unhealthy, right? Don't go practice soccer heading. That would be a bad idea. But relationship is so critical, which comes from time and a willingness to listen. I find too many parents talk over their children rather than do something we teach called active listening. So model it. So it means you have to know. And, quite frankly, I think most people at their core really know. I went into my daughter's second grade class. I drew 20 things on the board and I said, separate them for me. Good for your brain or bad for your brain. You know, alcohol, marijuana, nicotine, sugar, not exercising, being angry, negative thinking, orange juice. And, are they good for your brain or bad for it? And out of the 20 things I wrote down, they got 19 out of 20 right. So they got
Wow.
95% in brain health. The only thing they missed was orange juice, which has way too much sugar. And whenever you unwrap sugar from its fiber source, it turns toxic in
Mm.
your body. And yet so many parents go, oh, I give my kid apple juice. Aren't I a good mom? And it's
Right.
like, with the incidence of obesity and diabetes, no, that's not a good thing.
Yeah, that's really good. Well, and I do think for me, seeing all of your brain scans, that's the thing is I've been checking out so much of your work, which we're gonna drop all of the ways we can connect with you in the show notes because when I started looking at your brain scans and the difference of somebody that's using alcohol or using, I mean, it was completely eye-opening when you literally see the holes and in the brain and the lack of connectivity in the brain with sugar and things like that that are absolutely I don't think people are as keenly aware as of just how damaging it is.
Well, especially now with marijuana being so widely available and everybody thinking it's innocuous when it's not innocuous. Um, but when you start looking at the brain, everything changes. And
Mm-hmm.
you live with this question. It's another thing parents can do, live with this question. Whatever I'm going to do today, whatever my child is going to do today, is this good for their brain or bad for it? And if you can answer that with information and love of yourself, love of your children, you're just going to start making better decisions. And, you know, babies in brain health go, but I can't have this and I can't have that. And it's like, yeah, that's a 4-year old's mindset. It's, I get to have energy. I get to have happiness. I get to have joy. I get to have focus. I get to have more meaning and purpose. I get to have a closer relationship with my partner because I don't say stupid things. It's, you know, if you're focused on deprivation, you'll never stick with it. But if you're focused on what you really want, like, you know, I love French fries, but they don't love me.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I don't know, Angie, if you've ever been in a bad relationship with anyone, you know, probably the people listening, a whole bunch of people are like me and they've been in bad relationships in the past. Well, I'm damn sure not doing that with food, something
Yeah.
that I can control. And whenever I go to eat something, I'm like, okay, do I love it? And does it love me? Right? Just ask yourself, does the food you eat, the things you drink, do you love them? Because I want you to have like great food, but does it love you back? And if it doesn't love you back, what's the matter with you?
Yeah, I love that question, and I do think it's such a great way to frame it. I let's move on. Because one of the things that I see all the time as an educator is the unbelievable amount of families that are coming into me saying my child has ADHD, and those kids look vastly different symptoms and stuff. So talk to us about those parents that are coming with an ADHD diagnosis. How would you handle that if someone came to you with their child being diagnosed with ADHD?
Well, over the last 40 years, we've seen tens of thousands of ADD kids. And the first thing we realize is it's not one thing. It's like 7 different things. Give everybody Ritalin or Adderall, you make some kids better, and you make a whole bunch of other people worse, which is why they're controversial medications. If they made everybody better, they wouldn't be controversial.
Sure.
So ADD is real. And when it is left untreated, so a lot of people always ask me about the side effects of the medication, which of course they should, but
Mm-hmm.
they never ask me the side effects of not taking the
That's really
medication,
good.
which is
Mm-hmm.
an important question. Left untreated, ADD is a higher incidence of school failure, relationship problems, divorce, incarceration, bankruptcy, being fired. It's not a good thing. But yet, the knee jerk reaction in our country is you have ADD, take a stimulant. And without ever getting them to exercise, because exercise is a natural way to increase dopamine, what Ritalin and Adderall increase in the brain. They don't teach people to change their diet on an elimination diet. Uh, you know, more fat and protein and less simple carbohydrates. Kids focus better. Their medicine actually lasts longer. Study from Holland repeated that kids with ADHD who were on an elimination diet, 70% of them got better. So is it possible that we're poisoning our children? And just start reading the ingredients of corn dogs. For example, they have 29 ingredients and most of them you can't pronounce.
Mm.
And you're like, oh, yeah, corn dogs, that's good for my kid. No, it's bad for your kid. So food, so exercise, food, sometimes zinc and magnesium can be really helpful. And then it's like, well, what type do they have? And in my book, Healing ADD, I love that book so much because I started with, I know you're not going to read this book. Just read the first 5 pages. And generally, a lot of people finish it, but it's generally the mothers or the dads of the people who, and, an ADD is not a child thing. That, if your child has ADD, you want to look at both yourself and their other parent to go, where did it come from? Because it's very highly genetic. And if I don't see it in either side of the family, I look at the child to see if they look like their parents. Maybe they were switched at birth, or they have low iron, which is a very common cause, or they snore and they actually have big tonsils or big adenoids. When we were growing up, they used to take out tonsils and adenoids. They rarely do that now. So kids with sleep apnea have a higher incidence of ADD.
Mm.
And so you want to know your type. You want to do the natural things to help it first.
Mm-hmm.
But then if medicine is important, it can save their life.
Would you say that a brain scan should be done prior to medication, or would you, like for parents that maybe are going down this road and their first prescription is medication, what would your recommendation be for them?
Read Healing ADD. So
Great.
if the first thing is, let me give your child a stimulant, I would take a step back.
Mm-hmm.
That would make me nervous. I don't think the first thing's a scan. The first thing's a scan if you have a child that has failed multiple treatments. Then a scan is appropriate.
Okay.
I think the first thing is really good assessment. And no, ADD, we all have ADD symptoms at different times. ADD symptoms need to be present for years in order for you to really be certain, because stress can cause people to have ADD symptoms. A lousy diet can have it. But if you see over time, short attention span, easily distracted, disorganized, procrastinates, and restlessness and impulsivity over time, that's the best way to diagnose ADD with making sure they don't have low ferritin levels, that's iron, that their thyroid's not off, that there's not some other sort of metabolic reason for the behavior. And, I rarely will diagnose it in a 3-year-old. 30% of 3-year-olds look hyperactive. Only 5 to 10% of 4-year-olds look hyperactive. So the first time you can really diagnose it is 4, but it's been a struggle in their family since they were 1.5 or 2.
Wow. Wow, that's interesting. You look at the brain through 4 different lenses. Can you talk about that? I think that you call them 4 circles, that you really look at the brain. And I thought this was really enlightening for all of us, because I have a lot of parents, their kids are getting therapy, and that's, and we like therapy, but their kids aren't getting better.
Well, when I look at someone, I always think of them as whole people. And so I like the four circle approach I learned in medical school. It's what's the biology. And so there, looking at the brain's really important. And also looking at their important numbers and looking at their diet and their level of exercise. So what's the physical functioning of the brain? The second circle is the psychology. How does the child think? What is the level of trauma that that child has experienced? I call the negative thoughts ants. What's the ant population in the
Mm-hmm.
child? Um, and teaching them to kill the ants, eliminate the ants, is just critical skill that I know second graders can learn.
Mm-hmm.
I actually have a book, a children's book called Captain Snout. Actually, I have it here. Captain Snout
That's
and the superpower questions, teaching kids to not believe every stupid thing they think. There's a social circle, which is how are they getting along with their parents, with their siblings, with their schoolmates, with their teachers, what's going on in the child's family and in the child's world. And there's a spiritual circle, which is ultimately why does a child think they're on the planet?
mm,
What is their sense of meaning and purpose? And I find that's just a critical step is you're going to school, you have homework, so why are you going to do it? You're going to do it because you have to do it, or you're going to do it because you want to do something special in the world. You want to be educated because you have something cool to contribute. And I don't think we talk enough about purpose in children.
I agree with that. I'm curious if you have a child going to therapy, do you have a priority in which in the four circles that you like to say this, hey, this is the first thing to check, or is it all we take it into consideration all at once, or do you have a hierarchy or priority of which order you check those out in?
So I always start with why. So why do you want to be better? And so start with the spiritual circle and then
Good.
right away go to the biological circle. Think of it like hardware and software, network connections. So I think of the physical functioning of your brain as the hardware of your soul. And so doing therapy when your brain's not healthy, not terribly effective. And so get the hardware right, then you can program it. And then good hardware, good programming, the connections tend to be so much healthier.
So good. You have so many great resources. I know you have a book. I've already pre-ordered mine that's coming out. Tell us about your new book and when that's coming out and when we can get our hands on that.
Um, Change Your Brain every day. I love this book. I think of all my 42 books, this is my favorite. And the reason it's my favorite is it's got the greatest hits of all of them put into one book. What I realized is that brain and mental health are daily practices.
Mm.
You want to keep your brain healthy, you want to get your mind healthy, you got to work on it every day. Just like spiritual health, just like physical health, it's not something to just do when you're sick. You want a life that is thriving. You need to really strengthen these four circles. And the book is divided into 366 short essays. So just read one a day. And next year's leap year, which is why I included 366, because by the time, you know, March 21st comes around again, it's out March 21st, there will be 366 days. And if people pre-order the book, they can go to changeyourbraineveryday.com. We'll send them 4 free gifts, including a bottle of Calm My Brain, which is a wonderful supplement.
Yeah, and I love that you have supplements available on your website. You have clinics available do you have 8 clinics or do you have more than that now?
11.
11. You're a busy man. You're a busy man. So guys, we will include all of this in our show notes for you, but Dr. Amen, I am so grateful for the work you're doing because I feel like you are giving a lot of hope to people, and then you're giving a lot of tools for educators like me to incorporate into our schools. And I agree 100% with you. There's very little that becomes more important than helping our kids have healthy brains as they grow, because that's what will carry them through their lives. So thank you for all of your work and for your time today on the podcast. I'm grateful for it.
Thank you, Angie. It's been a pleasure to get to know you. Let's figure out how to get brain health in schools.
I am on board. We're going to do it. I believe in that. Thank you. Thanks for listening, guys. If you enjoyed this podcast, it was helpful for you, share it out with your friends. We need to get the word out because this is how we help people get healthy. I love that Dr. Amen's goal is basically eradicating mental illness. And I think it's possible with the tools that he puts in your hands. Thanks for listening.